going on, guys? This is Tim with the Gutter Growth Podcast. We're live today with Rob Word from Holy City Gutters. What's going on, Rob?
Tim, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited to get to the summit here, about 20 days or so?
Yeah, man, it's coming up fast, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It sure is, man.
That's good. I'm
Seems like
excited.
it was just here not too long ago. Now it's already here again.
I know. Man, you guys did such a good job the first time you put it on, too, just considering the amount of infrastructure that goes into it, the amount of planning. I've been to lots of conferences, and last year being the first time you guys had done it, y'all did a bang up job on it. I do have to commend y'all for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We got good partners. There's four of us, so we all have our little expertise. And John Majak's been to a trillion conventions, so he's kind of seen what he's liked and what he hasn't liked. And I've been to some, and just we all kind of just put our heads together and try to make it the best we can. But hopefully this year we're going to try to top it.
I love it. I mean, last year alone, I walked away with definitely some actionable items. So I feel like if anybody's there, it's worth it. It's worth every penny for sure.
Good deal, man. So I know you're going to be speaking while you're there.
I am going to be speaking. I appreciate that.
You want to enlighten us a little bit about what you're going to be speaking about, or?
Yes. So I started Holy City Gutterworks, as a one-man operation out of my garage. In fact, I left a large gutter protection company and started it just really kind of out of rage, to be honest with you. And along the way, I think I had, a lot of big dreams and a lot of big visions for it, and did a lot of things, push that business along in a way that necessarily wasn't the smartest at times. And I think a lot of people have a hard time going from being a single operator or an operator with a helper on the truck to getting off of the truck and, scaling your business appropriately, so that you can survive and make money. And I think ultimately the purpose that everybody starts a business for is to make money, to make a living. And I think everybody has probably a bigger purpose behind that too. And my hope is to give people just some education on what to do and what not to do. I tried to run the business into the ground twice. I mean, I was within 2 or 3 weeks of running completely out of cash at times. So, I'm going to give you a cautionary tale as well.
I've been there as well in my time. So it happens. It's really, people don't realize it's hard to get off the truck. It's not simple, but I can tell you this much: when you have like 4 or 5 crews, it's a lot easier to do business than it is when you're just one truck. I mean, it's incredibly easier to do more business than it is to do less, in my opinion, in my experience. Would you agree?
I would. And I think the other side of it too, when you start to dial in your marketing and, your customer acquisition becomes a little bit more steady and you understand how that works, I think that creates like a level of peace that, up until I did that, I had no idea it existed, because you're at the whim of the market, you're at the whim of your reputation, and God knows what goes on in between. But once we figured out how to dial in the marketing, and we're able to kind of utilize and really understand the business from start to finish, from getting a customer to installing the product and being able to service it, I really think that was a huge piece that I didn't learn until 6 years into the business. So
how long have you been at it now?
Holy City Gutter started in 2017. So we're in our 8th year now.
Yeah, that's a good spot to be.
I mean, we've scaled up to 25 guys, all the way back down to about 8 guys, and now we're sitting right around 16 at the moment. So
what was the difference between 24 and 16? Or you just got better guys, or is it
turns out training is a huge piece of it. I think we understood that everybody needed to know what they were supposed to do. However, we were leaving training up to the crews at one point. So it was kind of like trial by fire where you throw guys out in the field and just hope they
Yeah.
survive. And it's amazing that, like we have some guys that survive that way, but, now it's it's a 2.5 week process before we put guys in the field so that like they're viable from the moment they step on the truck. And same thing with our sales team. Like we would hire a sales team and just throw them out in the field and just hope they figured it out.
So you have an actual 2-week training period.
Mhm.
That's good.
First week's classroom, and we can speed it up or slow it down depending on the number of guys that are in it. We typically try and do a training class with 2 or 3, just knowing that attrition, you always find out there's always 1 or 2 guys that wind up stepping on a ladder for the first time at the beginning of week 2, and they're like, I thought I was cool with ladders, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So now we just plan for a little bit of attrition, and they get classroom work to begin with, and then they get field work the second week. So it's controlled stuff, and then it's a little bit of customer paying, like kind of lower hanging fruit projects for them to do before they loose with a crew. But our onboarding right now for installers, I think the whole process grew. We got better at hiring. We asked better questions. We understand our purpose. We have a mission, vision, core values that we use to kind of drive a lot of things now. So our onboarding, since we did that, we're about 80-20. Before it was like 60-40. We'd lose more than we kept.
You're keeping 80%.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
But I mean, we're also we're hiring and keeping fewer at a time. I think our last 2 classes we had 3 and 2, so we had 5 guys in the last 2 classes and we lost 1 in both. So we wound up like 4, so that put 2 crews together. And then we're keeping guys longer. I think every time we've had a major change, it's wound up clearing house to a certain extent, whether it's like if the pay changes or we actually took a huge hit with the mission, vision, core values. And it's because ultimately we made that decision and decided to defend it. And we had guys on staff that actually were like talented terrors, if you will. They did a lot of work, but were miserable to work with. And
another type.
Yeah, we made the decision to defend it. We fired those guys that wound up taking 4 guys with it. I thought we were talking like a 3-month to 6-month turnaround. It took 12 months.
Yeah.
It took 12 months to rebound from it. So
but it was a good decision, right?
100%. After doing that, even after like immediately after doing it and realizing that like our pockets were a whole lot lighter, just the atmosphere around work was so much nicer to be around that, it was undeniable that we made the right decision. And it just took a while for us to get enough people back on board to make up for what we got rid of. Now we're overproducing what we were doing then, but
yeah,
it hurt. It was 12 months. It's 12 months of pain for sure.
Sounds like you got a great system now, though. Do you have those like recorded modulars, or are you running the class, or do you have someone else running it, or?
So I run the installer onboarding and like the first half of the sales onboarding, and I think my intent was maybe to hand that off at some point. But what I like about it is I get to set from day one, the atmosphere. I get to push the mission, the vision, and the core values, and really set what's important to us as a company. And while I may give that up at some point, especially as we move to different, we move to multiple locations. But for now, it just seems to work, and I like that role at the moment. I think it makes a lot of impact.
I think it's good. I mean, it's a leadership role. It's definitely a high value task. It's not like you're answering phones. You're doing something that's going to push the company forward. So I like it. How was it? And by the way, guys, we're live. So if you got any questions for Rob, go ahead and hit us up with some questions. He's going to be speaking at the Gutter Summit We don't have any more free tickets to give, but we are giving away 20% discount code. So if you comment, grow or anything, we'll go ahead and send you that discount code. Hopefully you can come out and see us. But definitely hit us up with some questions. Seems like Rob has really nailed the onboarding, which is huge. I don't think anyone's doing this, so this is really good. My son started personal training at a gym. They did the same thing. They sent him down to another gym down south, and he spent a whole week there, and he had like a whole week of training. And the confidence that guys have when they have these onboarding processes is way up compared to just kind of throwing them out there in the field. So I commend you for that. That's awesome, bro.
I think the other benefit of it too is my guys that are in the field now understand that they're not going to get a guy that comes out initially. They're going to be viable from day one. So they're going to have a skill of some sort. They may not be the most efficient at everything, but they know they're going to be able to cut downspouts. They know they're going to be able to hang gutter. So that all they have to do is manage like their speed of work and their efficiency versus having to teach them the whole thing and then becoming an anchor and slowing them down, which has made that a whole lot easier. I do see Isaac asked if we implemented EOS. We have self-implemented EOS. I guess the blessing and the curse of EOS is obviously it comes with an expense. We were in some other groups. We were a member of the Certified Contractors Network, which was a pretty hefty cost from a training perspective, and we got out of that. But we do find a lot of benefit from even self-implementing EOS. We use a level 10 meeting. We do the core meetings. Our initial mission, vision, and core values implementation was an EOS. That was like a traction version of doing that.
Rob, can you break down what EOS is for those that don't know?
Yeah. It's the Entrepreneur's Operating System. It was presented initially in the book Traction, and
yeah, it's a good book.
Yep, and at this point now you can actually pay to have somebody come in and implement EOS into your business. And the other contractors I know who have implemented had somebody come in out from outside and implement it. Have found it wildly beneficial, and it's because it creates a certain amount of clarity between everybody's role within the business. So there's not, I think the curse of everybody in a small business is we all wear a million different hats. And part of that implementation is just defining whose roles or what, and, these are your primary tasks and responsibilities above all else. And so we do a version of it. Do I plan to implement and actually pay to have somebody do EOS with us? Absolutely. And I think it's because having an outside perspective and have somebody tell you like what's wrong with your business, I think is hugely valuable.
It's always good to bring an expert in.
Because sometimes you
don't have to be the experts at everything.
Well, and not only that, the other benefit is you don't always see your blind spots. And having somebody come in from outside and tell you your blind spots or call, sometimes it's painful, but extremely helpful when somebody calls you out on all the stuff that you're bad at. So
it's easy to get like tunnel vision when you're focused and these things that you don't see on the outside that other people do. Jesse's got a question here. How do I convert hourly pay to footage or percentage on a sub check? I mean, I don't know. I don't think you can pay subs hourly. I think if you're paying hourly, that's really an employee. So I would be careful with that. If they're using your own equipment, your own truck, and you're telling them when to be at the job, they're really an employee. You could get in a legal situation there. I recommend, like, if you don't have a payroll company and they are using all your own equipment, getting a leasing company is probably the fastest way to set one up. Southeast Leasing. There's a few others. I think I have one on my partner page. But most people aren't really subs. Now, I am using subs at Mother's Gutters, but they literally have their own truck, their own equipment. It's not my equipment. They're telling us when they can get out to do the job. I'm not making the schedule. I'm coordinating the schedule with the homeowner, but it's based off of my sub schedule. So it's just, you got to be really careful that it's, he said no, he said check. It checks.
On a check stub. How do I convert hourly pay to footage or percentage on a
Am I
check
reading
stub?
it wrong? Okay. How do I convert?
I don't know if I think the hard part is that question could be interpreted a lot of ways, and I think I mean if you know what your linear footage is, then I guess you can divide it by divide it by the pay.
Well,
Um,
I do got an answer to this. All right. So basically,
mhm.
if you're doing percentage, now here's another thing that you got to be careful from. I think I
Just got to
understand what you're
you got
saying.
to pay it by the hour.
Right. So it's going to be based on week to week because if you're paying percentage, your hourly rate changes. And so if they get into overtime that particular week, you have to pay what their hourly rate is that week, because it's a changing hourly rate. So if
Yeah,
they
this
get
is
into
called
overtime,
piece rate.
you're still on the hook for it. I think the best way to do percentage is to have a smaller hourly rate. If you go over overtime, you're going to have overtime on that. But whatever the difference is with the percentage, you could pay as a bonus or a commission check, so separate it from the hourly. I hope I answered that right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways to do it. We pay everybody hourly, and then we do a pooled incentive bonus.
How does that work?
So, I mean, we do it based off of total revenue for the month. We set a revenue goal for the month, and the the pooled incentive is everybody that's on the installation team as well as the administrative team. So the people that are, fielding the phone calls and setting up meetings. They split 2% at 90% of the revenue bonus revenue goal, and then 3% at 100% plus of the revenue goal. So crew leads get a higher percentage of that pool, and then everybody else splits the rest.
So they love that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the benefit that we have seen from it is, I wanted to really build a team, and I think the hard part about individualizing the trucks and paying just individual on the trucks is that it doesn't incentivize the guys to work together in order for the company to meet their goals.
I like that.
And I felt like, and honestly, I think it was Corey J that kind of walked me through. Corey, they have a similar incentive plan as well, and we were paying our guys hourly, and instead of converting them over to a percentage, this just seemed to be like the simplest way to kind of combine and create some incentive outside of like just paying them by the hour, and converting them full over to percentage. But I mean, the math lines up.
Yeah.
We track the math enough. We know, like, they're going to fall within 16 to 18% of the cost of goods sold. And we do a meeting at the end of every month where we look at the gross profit from every project. And if if we nuke a job because the guys worked too long on it, then we just dive into it and figure out where we made the mistakes.
I like that because that brings the whole team working together. It's pretty genius.
I knew it worked about like 3 months ago. I called one of our installers on site who had a installation question, and when he picked up, we walked through the problem, and he's like, "Yeah, the rest of the guys are here helping." Like, it's like a Friday, and I had 3 trucks there with, I mean, there was like 6 guys finishing a job at the end of the week. I was like,
wow,
we may actually be getting somewhere.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
So.
So, guys, if you just jumped on, we're giving out no more free tickets, but I am giving out 20% discount codes if you want to come see it at the summit. I think I have like 10 tickets left, maybe not even. So it's something you'd want to jump on quick if you're going to come. I don't think we'll be selling tickets after next week. So go ahead and comment something if you want a 20% discount code, or if you got some questions for Rob. Rob's going to be speaking at the Gutter Summit. He's built an incredible business, starting from being on the truck to getting off the truck. So, Rob, what did that look like? What was like the first step you took to get yourself personally removed off the truck?
A lot of false starts. I'll tell you, actually, and maybe this is cheating, but I got off the truck initially because I went on vacation. I had a helper and he had a brother. So the helper, my helper brought his brother on board and was doing installations that I had sold during the week. Mind you, the business had been running for like 3 or 4 months at this point. We had just signed the lease to warehouse space. Is like
Mhm.
the biggest commitment I'd made like to the business so far. It was like a 3-year lease commitment. I went on vacation with my family, and the second day on vacation, I was at CrossFit with my brother and blew out my patellar tendon, my right one. So, and at the time, I was 100% of the sales team and 50% of the install team. So I researched chapter 11 for a day, or chapter 17, whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so bankrupt. I don't even know what to do with myself. Um, and then I got on the phone. I had just come from Lee Filter, and they at the time were 1099ing all their sales guys. I just called their top sales guy and I was like, "Hey man, I got 17 leads. Will you take these leads for me?" Um, and when I got back into town, I had to schedule surgery. I couldn't drive for like 4 months. It was miserable.
Wow.
But I guess necessity, you know, allows us to figure things out. I got back and I had the surgery, and I brought him on board as a sales guy. My installation guy brought his brother on as an installer. And so like like that stopped the bleeding at that point. And by the time they got back on, or by the time I was able to drive and start working again, I I kind of established the position as it was and just started building from there.
Yeah.
So I would love to say that initially, like, oh yeah, I had this great
Of
plan.
course.
But sometimes the plan is like, don't run out of money. And when you're backed into a space where you don't have a choice, like I figured it out. But I also think the other curse to that is that like I had no plan to get out of that either. I had no plan, even once I put everybody into place, I spent another 3 years not knowing what I was doing and just, burning money in a barrel and, um,
So is it
mowing
all
through installers. So
was it all trial and error, or was there a point when you read a book or something changed, or were able to
yeah,
structure it out properly, or what was that shift?
I sadly, I didn't start reading books until like, probably 3 or 4 years in. And that's when understanding like the structure of the business, understanding that like I needed to have onboarding procedures or needed to have like, I mean, hell, I needed systems for everything. And I read the E Myth.
Oh, that's a good one.
And it, and what's great about the E Myth is my favorite thing is what he talks about in there is like the first thing he says is most people who start businesses don't start businesses because they're good at business. They start business because they are exceptional technicians,
Yep.
and they have what he called it, what does he call it? An entrepreneurial seizure, where they start a business and they don't understand, all the mechanics of what works on a business. And I read that. And the other thing he goes into is, you know, 50 to 75% of small businesses fail for that reason alone. And it's typically because they don't know how to manage cash flow. And that's when I started reading on managing cash flow. And mind you, I started reading this stuff because I had already started pushing the business beyond where it should have been.
Right.
My biggest learning lesson was I bought a building and then instituted a health insurance program all at the same time.
Mm.
And not once in that entire process was I like, how does my business need to change? Um, and so that's what pushed me into having to figure out like how to manage the money and how to manage the structure. Um, so s- I would say like really where the clarity came was I had 3 weeks left of money, and I am a Master Shield micro mesh gutter guard dealer. I don't know if you're familiar with like
I am. Yep.
Master Shield and Clean Gutter. Well, Karen had a ticket to a conference called Accelerate
Hmm.
Live. It's put on by Brian Kaskavalskian, who is the 7 Secrets of a Wealthy Contractor guy. First conference I've ever been to. I went down there, and in my mind, I was like, "Well, I'll go down here and it, my business was DOA. I thought we were toast."
Yeah.
Um, and I went down there and stayed. I actually borrowed the money from my dad to pay for the hotel room. I stayed down there, and I stayed an extra day to hear a guy named Charlie Gindel talk. And Charlie is a window sales guy who wound up, selling his business to Renewal by Anderson out in Orange County, California. He's a CCN coach. He's a Brian Kaskavalsian's like Wealth Secret Society. He's one of their coaches, but I sat in his class. It was a growth class, but he essentially walked through the difference between where he started and where he finished and what he learned along the way. And he talked about accrual accounting, which I'd never heard before in my entire life. He talked about scheduling for revenue, which we sure as shit weren't doing. He talked about, having a mission, a vision, and core values, having a sales plan. I didn't have any of that shit.
Yeah.
And so, he makes the joke that the first time he sat there, he wanted to cut a hole in the carpet and crawl into the carpet and crawl out of the room. And I had viscerally that same reaction at the same time. I was like, 5 years into running the business at this point. I was like, man, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. But it was the biggest learning lesson I ever had. I went back. We were a $6 a foot guy. We were selling everything at $6 a foot. And I realized part of the reason I was running out of money is because I couldn't afford to pay for the level of service that I was providing.
Yeah, it's so true.
I went back and I raised our prices 40% overnight. Lost my sales team. I had like a mass exodus at the time, but it was, that was the first best thing to ever happen because I've got a core, my director of operations, the business does not run without him. If we're talking EOS, he is definitely the integrator to the visionary and we play that role pretty well. Between the two of us, he put the business on his back and made all the sales while we revamped the hiring process and learned how to manage the finances. And once we were able to wrap our arms around how we were making money and how people were coming in, then we went back and started putting people into roles with like responsibilities so that they could manage their job. When we put them into it, we finally had performance metrics that people had to follow. So I guess the long and the short of it is like, I threw stuff at the wall and had no idea what I was doing until I just realized like I couldn't live like I couldn't be broke and not know what I was doing anymore. And Charlie Gindel's talk was the first way to do it, and then I've been kind of drinking the Kool-Aid ever since.
I don't know if you guys caught that, but everything changed for him after going to a seminar or some type of convention.
100%.
100%.
100%.
So you need to change your business right now. You should be at the Gutter Summit. You can hit me up right now, comment grow. I'll give you 20% off and we'll get you there.
100%. And I wouldn't have gotten any further if I didn't have mastermind groups to lean into as well. So, I mean, I'm a member of Gutter Growth. I think it's extremely valuable. I've reached out, to coaches inside of it, had them help me with stuff. Corey J has helped me with some things. And, I think both our job as owners, if we want the business to do what we want it to do for us, if we wanted to provide for our family and provide for our employees' families, like it's our job to maximize how that happens. And you just can't learn it all by yourself. You can learn it by yourself, but it'll take forever. If you have resources that can get you there faster, like that's 100% the point of it.
Yep. No doubt. Yeah. Mastermind groups are good because whenever you got more than one brain, you just see more. That's part of the reason why Gutter Summit was able to be so great year one, because we had 4 brains. It wasn't just one of us trying to figure it out. Like we literally had 4. We would hash things out. Sometimes my idea was a no-go, someone else's idea was a no-go, but we came together and were able to grow something great because we had other people's opinions.
Did I see there was somebody? Is there somebody else talking at Gutter Summit? Didn't I see something about the disc profile?
I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to check.
I thought I saw on maybe the podcast or something, somebody like
personality
had the 4
test.
Yeah, the 4 levels of, like, we use the disc profile, like,
I think that was just a podcast I had. I don't think it's
was it?
Yeah. I like Myers-Briggs. I don't know. Have you ever MBTI? Yeah. It's a little bit, there's 16 personalities, so it's more in depth, but I dug into that for I was kind of obsessed with it. I studied it for 5 years. And it's pretty accurate.
It's actually amazing, both from a sales strategy standpoint. For us, the disc has 4 profiles, and then you're a mixture of a few. But both internally and externally, the disc is a behavioral profile. So it's not necessarily, personality test, if you will, behavioral profile. Like, what we noticed is I'm a DI, so I'm more of a sales guy profile. And then I kept hiring other sales guy profiles. Well, you've had sales guys in your business. What are they good at? They're good at selling stuff, but what are they bad at?
A lot of things.
Everything else. Paperwork, staying committed to one thing.
Yeah.
And so we started hiring using the disc profile, because it's like, man, if I keep front loading this business with a bunch of me's, then we're gonna suck at paperwork, and we're gonna ignore phone calls when we got other things going on. And I think I never would have known about the disc profile if I hadn't have gone to Accelerate year 2. A guy named John Inglis did an entire 45-minute talk on it, and his was from a sales profile standpoint. Like, he was picking out disc profiles and then tailoring the sales presentation to their disc profile, and I was like, man, this is next level.
Yeah, no, it is. And most major companies have it. They're testing you something. They might not tell you what it is, they might not tell you the results, but they're definitely using it on the back end for hiring decisions and making sure people are getting placed right. It's definitely worth learning about. I think the disc is probably more reasonable for a business, because it's not 16 different things to learn.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a frankly, it's a 15-minute test.
Yeah.
The benefit of it is it does have 50 to 60 years of backing as well, so it's not it's not snake oil. You're not going to be able to revamp your business off of it, but we use it a lot of times. In a sales role, a certain behavior has a tendency to be more successful than another. Same thing with a production manager or a sales manager, or even an admin. So we use it as a secondary, hey, we like this person. Let's put them through a disc profile and see if they fit within the metrics of somebody that would be successful in this role. And frankly, when we started using it for sales guys, we had a whole lot more success in who we were finding, because we were doing interviews and hiring guys that we thought were great, and then on the back end, once we put the disc profile and we started testing them, and the guys that didn't make it are the guys that didn't have the appropriate disc profile, which I thought was interesting.
So you think it's probably a contributor to the 80% success rate on your onboarding?
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of hoops to jump through, and I think there's a benefit and a detriment to it, right? I think some of it too is some people will be successful. It doesn't matter what their behavior profile is. They've got a job to do. They'll go out and get it done, right?
Yeah.
But, and this was probably more so because at the time I was more on top of hiring. I see everybody as if I'm a hammer, everyone's a nail, right? Everybody solved a problem. I needed the body. Everybody was making it past the interview process.
Yeah.
And so we put like a couple of different levels into place. The first thing we did was we read Hiring for Attitude. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was
I've
more a
heard of it. I
matter
never
of
read it. Okay.
it was more a matter of like asking questions and not leading them to the right answers.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're guilty of like, tell me about a time you had a difficult customer and what you did to resolve it. Well, it's the what you did to resolve it that they're like, don't ever ask that question again.
Yeah.
And then we scored them off of like 1 out of 3 answers, one being the best, and it was from a personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked for negative, like, we had kind of like red flags for if they talked bad about an employer, if they talked bad about another employee, um, you know, so that graded them downwards. So it made the interview process where we tried to make it is uniform. Where if I did the interview and followed the process, or my office manager did it, or my operations manager did it, like we would have relatively similar answers
Yeah.
from the scoring standpoint.
The
And then
beauty
we
of
put the disc,
systems.
mhm. And then we put the disc profile in as the secondary. Like, okay, they checked this box. Did they check this box? And the last box is background check and drug test, which was a white knuckle moment for a while for those of us who have worked in the contracting industry. Um, but it's surprisingly been extremely valuable. I mean, like we did it. We've never had a problem with it. So
Are your insurance rates better? Or?
yeah, we get a discount. We get an insurance discount for having the drug program. We have to certify it and verify it every year, but I mean it's not significant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think that's
but I mean,
valuable.
yeah.
I mean, I've had a guy actually die on one of my jobs once, but they
Oh
brought him
Lord.
back. But
Yeah.
had I had a drug test at the time, maybe I wouldn't have had that guy working for me.
Mm-hmm. He died from an accident or like
No, he overdosed.
OD'd on the.
Yeah,
Oh Lord.
OD. They had to Narcan him.
I mean, I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I had employed every junkie in Charleston at some point early in this process because, like I said, if you had a pulse and could hold a drill, then I probably hired you.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Like that onboarding thing you got going on. So anyone's just jumped on, we're going to be giving out 20% discount on summit tickets. We're going to be on here like another 5 minutes. If you have any questions for Rob or for me, go ahead and hit us in the comments. So yeah, man. So I don't know. What's something you think is valuable that everyone on here should know?
I think the biggest change in my business came when we moved to accrual accounting. And it was the hardest change that I had to make. And it's because there is a like no man's land when you transition from about $800,000 to over $1 million, where you now have enough economy of scale that you probably have 30-day payment terms with your suppliers.
Yep.
You probably have customers that are booked out more than 6 weeks. Maybe you're booked like in the 6-week range, so you're beyond a month. And if you sell it in September and you don't install it until October, but you take a deposit in September, but you don't get paid, let's say you don't get paid till November 1st,
Mm-hmm.
then, and this is what happens if you're just looking at your business by cash, then the deposit goes in September, the payment goes in November, your material occurs somewhere around between October and November. You don't know when. It's hard to figure out exactly what your performance is. And that was kind of an eye-opening experience when I walked through that and started looking at it, because on the one hand, there's a lot of people that go top line revenue and they're like, hey, we sold 1.3 last year, we sold 1.5, but did you install 1.5? Because ultimately, can you really account for the money that you have made until the job has been installed? You can spend it, but here's the thing is at the end of the year, if you sold it in December and you just took a deposit on it and it's sitting in your bank as cash and the end of the year occurs, you're
for
paying
like the
taxes
next
on
year.
deposits. Yeah, you're paying deposit. You're paying taxes on deposits. That's like a side benefit of it, but the secondary benefit of it is now I was able to align the material expenses, the labor expenses, and the sales with the actual jobs that we completed. So I knew in a given month exactly what our gross profitability was. And then from there, whittling down to like, we're all about net profit at this point. And we
Yeah.
weren't for a long time. We were driven by top line. And now it's like, we're trying to fatten up the bottom line. Tucker
Yeah.
says, which do you think is more important, sales and marketing? Well,
Sales.
I think
Right.
at the end of the day, sales. But the unfortunate part is that that's a married couple right there. And if your marketing
You're
sucks,
better
then you don't
together.
have anybody to sell to.
Yeah.
So, I think, I mean, you have to have a good sales process. And for us, I think if you've ever listened to Alex Hormozy, this is one of the things I've leaned into recently is our closing percentage is determining whether or not our pricing is right at the moment. So we have a targeted closing percentage of 30%, which is actually sounds really low. A lot of people would white knuckle over that, but my pricing is crazy high. And it's and we ebb and flow off of that. In fact, we were closing about 40 to 48% earlier in the year, and we threw another 15% on top. And we use our closing percentage to determine whether or not our pricing aligns. And if our closing percentage falls, statistically below 30% regularly, then we'll move the price backwards in order to. I mean, a lot of times it's just revisiting how our sales process is working, because a lot of times what happens is the sales guys just kind of forget the cadence and how they're asking things.
And that's if you're high price, that's not a bad closing rate. I mean, if you look at it this way, like there's so many companies going $5-6 a foot. They got $1 or $2 profit. That's it. If you're $10, $12, like literally, let's call it 12, and someone else is 6, they got $2 profit. You got literally your one job is them doing 4 jobs. And say if they got a $2,000 job that they're pricing at that, they have to do like 10 grand. They have to do like 5 jobs to make what you can make off of doing one job. So you can sacrifice your closing rate and have a proper price. So it
I just have a hard time
definitely
hearing
works.
no is what everybody hates to hear.
Right. They don't like to lose.
Right. And I understand, trust me, I thought I was killing it closing at 50%, but I was closing at 50%, selling $8 a foot gutter. And I think when you sit down and actually do the math on it, the other side of it too is like you owe it to your customers to charge the right price, because it is a common problem that you have to go back and reseal an end cap, or go and a miter leaks, one pinhole in the miter leaks, and you got to go back and seal it. If you're not charging the right price, then you're hurting twice, because you're paying for the guys to go out there and fix it. At least on my end, I'm paying for guys to go out there and fix it, and I'm losing the money, for the installation crew to go make it elsewhere. Now I realize, 1099 guys, it's a little bit different, but even then, those guys aren't out making you money. They may not be costing you money, but it's still, it still doesn't work in the long run. And you can't pay for your office staff. You can't pay for bonuses. You can't have events. Like, I mean, it's important to be able to charge enough so that you can like run a business and not feel like, you're literally rubbing pennies together, especially in the worst of times.
And I'm glad you said that, because, like, listen, if you know that you don't have an office admin yet and you need a VA, first off, you know that you can hit me up and I could, I'm the plug on that. But you need to have the money. You need to have the money in the footage price to be able to afford that stuff. If you want an office admin, charge for an office admin. If you want advertising money, charge for advertising.
You'll charge
money.
for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to come from somewhere.
And I think that's like guys get short-sighted enough that they only see like, all right, I went out and I sold, I have a 50% closing rate. It's like, well, that's great, but you ain't got that much money.
Jesse says, he's got two questions here. What do you think is the best advertising platform? There's a lot of good advertising platforms, but personally, like, what do you do when you look for a business? Like, you're probably Googling. And so I would say, like, make sure you're showing up on Google, both organically and paid ads.
Start where you search first. And then I think the other side of it is marketing is like fishing. And the more poles you have in the water, the more fish you're going to catch.
He says also, could you go over one more time how to convert the installers from hourly pay to commission per foot or percentage? You could do both ways. I always like doing a percentage of the job. I knew, I had fixed margins, so I know what my margins are going to be when it's that way. It's not fluctuating. So personally, I like, fixed percentage, and then I would do that hourly pay. Subtract it from whatever that percentage is, and whatever the difference is what I would pay as a commission or a bonus. What about you, Rob?
I wish I was smart enough to fix it from the get-go, but I got rolled all the way in and had 10 installers by the time, 8 installers by the time I was like, oh man, I could have done
it this way.
Piece rate. Yeah, I should do it piece rate. So instead of doing a piece rate, the opposite is like, I just track the percentage and make sure that it fits. Ours is fixed, but occasionally it gets nuked. But the other side of it too is occasionally it works out better. Guys,
yours are like 16, 17, and it's just
mine fluctuates between 16 and 18. Our goal was both our materials and our expenses are materials and labor is between 16 and 18. Sales commission is 8 with the bonus being the 2%. So like we're shooting for a 55% profit margin. So as long as it falls, as long as everything above the line, and above the line is like direct costs, sales commissions, materials, labor, fuel. Yeah. As long as that stuff falls, within the 45%, then we've hit what we need to hit.
Good deal. All right, man. Well, I think that's all I got today.
Cool.
Got anything else?
No, listen,
you want to hear more, come to the summit.
Yeah, come see us at Gutter Summit, and I will dive pretty deeply into accrual accounting because I think a lot of guys miss out on it, and I think it's a huge transition from just crossing over $1 million into pushing beyond $1 million because really have a massive blind spot for like what your performance is and what kind of money you're making. And, it's really hard to be successful if your business doesn't make a profit. Your profit is the company's paycheck. And if you can't put your finger on the pulse of what your business is making profitably, like month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year, it's going to be really hard to get beyond, being the cornerstone of your business and having everything funnel back through you as a business owner, which, let's all be frank. We all want more, but that's not what we want more of.
No doubt. Steven, you got on late. Yeah. Once I get off, man, you could do a playback on this for sure. If you want 20% off on the Gutter Summit, you should definitely come see us. Comment, grow, and I'll go ahead and shoot that to you. So we're out, man. So
dig it.
Rob, I appreciate you coming on here, man. That was valuable. Definitely you don't want to miss his speech at the summit. Accounting is important. So good deal. All right, brother. I will see you at the summit.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you all at the summit.
See you then.